In today's show, we're talking Damian Lillard injury news. Blazers star point guard is going to be out for at least 10 days with the abdominal injury that's been bothering him since at least July. Nassir Little also on the shelf for at least a week, joining Damian Lillard there. And then we're going to close the show with a whole bunch of fake trades. I asked you, dear listeners, to send me a bunch of trade ideas. You did. We will go through the best ones, evaluate what we like and what we don't like as we look how to change and reconstruct and deconstruct this Trailblazers roster. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and now also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us get to 2,000 subscribers by 2022. We got a little bonus content for you because there's big Blazers news. Damian Lillard is out for at least 10 days and Nassir Little's out for at least a week. Let's unpack quickly what that means for your Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard has been dealing with an ab injury basically all year long. And now the Blazers are finally deciding to give their star point guard an extended period of time off. If you're familiar with this show, if you're a longtime listener to the show, like this is something that I kind of, in my non-medical expert opinion, contemplated in early November. Like, does Dame maybe need some rest? Because he hasn't looked like himself. Well, now here we are some 22 games into the season, and the Blazers have decided, yes, it is time to give Damian Lillard some rest. And they announced today that Lillard will be reevaluated in 10 days after an MRI confirmed that he's dealing with this ab injury. He didn't play in Tuesday night's game against the Detroit Pistons, the second night of a back-to-back, and now he's going to miss at least the next 10 days. So that would be, at the earliest, he'll be reevaluated on December 11th, which means he'll miss a home game against the San Antonio Spurs, another home game against the Boston Celtics, and a home game against the Clippers, and then a road game at the Golden State Warriors. Minimum of 4 games before he'll be reevaluated. Following that, the Blazers have 3 days off. They do not play on December 9th, 10th, and 11th. That would allow them, 3 full days at home, 3 full days of not playing basketball, to reevaluate what kind of where Dame's at and whether he can return. There's no guarantee he would return, but after missing those 4 days and then having 3 days off, you would get a chance for him to decide or for the team to decide, medical staff and Dame and his health and all that, to decide together whether he could return on December 12th when the Blazers begin a 4-game homestand against the Minnesota Timberwolves. What does that mean for the Blazers? Well, it means Anthony Simons is very likely to remain as part of the starting lineup. And one of the reasons is because Nassir Little's also out. The Blazers, could slide Norman Powell down to the 2 and start Nassir Little at the 3. But Chauncey Billups has gone with Tony Snell as a starter over Nas as those minutes, trusting the veteran over the Blazers' third-year player. And Nassir Little out for at least a week now. He'll be reevaluated a week after spraining his left ankle against the Utah Jazz. Nassir Little kind of got tripped up in a fast break and then while trying to catch his balance, rolled that left ankle. He showed up to the arena last night on crutches and in a walking boot, and now he is going to miss at least a week with this ankle injury. That leaves the Blazers a little thin. Luckily for them, they've got a team not a ton of wings, but a whole bunch of 6'3" and under guards. So the Blazers won't have trouble filling the other guard spot, but it means more minutes for Anthony Simons. It means more minutes for Dennis Smith Jr. It means an extended and consistent playing time for Tony Snell. And it might mean some more minutes for Ben McCollum, who in his first real rotation minutes last night against the Detroit Pistons scored 17 points in 18 minutes off the bench. The Blazers are not, they're not going to be better without Damian Lillard, but this is the spot in the roster where they have some depth at guard. It's a chance for Mccollum to kind of take the reins and prove that he can be the leader of a basketball team. It's a chance for Anthony Simons, who people have been clamoring for a bigger role and more minutes and more responsibility, to get that role, get those minutes and get the responsibility and run with it. And it's a chance for vets like Ben McLemore and Dennis Smith Jr. and Tony Snell to prove they can sort of fill in. In general, it's this you want Damian Lillard to be ready in January and February. If you have to sacrifice 10, 12, 15 days in December to make sure his body gets right for the second half of the season, you have to do it. There just haven't been enough games this year where Damian Lillard looks like Damian Lillard. Like you've basically had these little brief moments where we say, okay, maybe, and you start to try to talk yourself into some optimism. But then there's nights like against the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City, the last game he played, where he just looked like he wasn't moving. And some of it felt like he maybe just didn't have, wasn't into it. But I think there's got to be some physical limitations that are limiting what he can do out there. And now the Blazers are giving him 10 full days, and Nassir Little with this ankle injury, another little bit of time off. So this is the short-term impact is more Snell, a whole bunch more Anthony Simons, and maybe a little bit more Ben McLemore. And the long-term impact is that hopefully with 10 days off to get his ab right, get his abdominal muscle right, that you get the best version of Damian Lillard again, because that player hasn't been on the roster. And the Blazers' future and their chances this season depend on getting that version of Damian Lillard on the roster. So 10 days, the Blazers will play at least four games without Dame, 5 total, including the game against the Pistons. Very likely that Nassir Little misses Nas would miss at a minimum those 4 games against the Spurs, Celtics, Clips, and Warriors. Like I said, the 3 days off gives the Blazers a little leeway for each of them to get back. But it sounds like based on the press releases announced by the Blazers today that Nassir Little is likely to be back before Damian Lillard, who could miss more time after that December 11th reevaluation date. So 10 days for the Blazers to play 4 games. I would say other than the Warriors game, 3 winnable home games against the Spurs, Celtics, and Clippers, and then a very tough game in Golden State. You want to tread water. They've been treading water with Dame on the court. If they can tread water with him out on the court, they can still be in the position, not maybe they want to be in, but not in a terrible position when he's able to return. And if he's able to return at full strength, this seems like a very worthwhile 10-day experiment. That's what we got for you on the injury front. So today's show was supposed to be a mailbag episode, and then this injury news came out, and we had to lead with it because it's the biggest news of the day. It's Damian Lillard on the shelf for 10 days. But we're still going to do mailbag to close the show. It's our weekly segment where we answer listener-submitted questions. We're going to do a version of the mailbag to close the show. But before we do that, let me tell you about Shopify. In case you didn't know, Shopify is a complete commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using the Shopify point of sale app and the accompanying hardware. Listen, Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses, so upstarts and startups and established businesses alike can sell everywhere. They can synchronize online and they can synchronize in-person sales, and then those be able to effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify helps you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. Shopify powers over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale, reaching customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integration apps, including Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, and more. Meet people where they are with Shopify, and plus, you'll be able to gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. So why don't you go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA, that's all lowercase LockedOnNBA, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA right now. That's shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by Truebill. It's the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, that you don't want, or that you just straight up forgot about. On average, Truebill saves people about $720 a year. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Listen, Truebill has over 2 million users, and they've helped folks save over $100 million. I've used Truebill. Worked quickly and easy for me to get my eyeballs on all the subscriptions I have, kind of figure out where they were. less than 10 minutes maybe from grain to bread with Truebill. So if this is something that you might need, it's super simple. Check it out. Don't fall for those subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA could save you thousands of dollars a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. All right. So we talked Damian Lillard and Nassir Little's injuries. Dame's going to be out for at least 10 days. And Nassir Little out for at least a week. Conceivably, they both could come back on that December 12th game against Minnesota, but sounds like Dame is reevaluated in 10 days. It's just a way of saying, here's the timeline, and you don't get to ask questions about it for 10 days. I believe the NBA rules stipulate that Damian Lillard is supposed to talk to the media if he has a long-term injury like this. Will he? Maybe not. The way media rules work now, it's just it's not necessarily going to happen. But this was supposed to be a full mailbag show, but then this news came out in the middle of the day, and instead of doing what we do here typically is a weekly mailbag show answering listener submitted questions all episode long, we're going to do it just for these last two segments. But today was already going to be a bit of a weird one because instead of answering listener submitted questions, I was going to respond to your trade ideas. In a previous show, I had put out a call saying the Blazers are $3 million over the luxury tax line. They really want to get under that luxury tax line, and if they're going to make a trade, they need to improve the team or theoretically get better while getting cheaper. And I put out the call to you, dear listeners, and I said, hey, send me your trades. Send me your trades. Many of you are trade machine maestros. I called up the maestros, the Picassos, the true artists in Fanspo and ESPN's Trade Machine to kind of craft deals and maybe go through the exercise of sort of how difficult it is for the Blazers to get, desirable moves for CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic and Robert Covington. And those are the main people are trying to trade. And so many of you responded, quite frankly. I was a little bit overwhelmed with the response. People are excited about player movement, excited about trades and all that stuff. So instead of doing what I sometimes do and say, I hate Trade Machine, I'm just going to suck it up and let's talk trades. Let's talk fake trades. We were going to do a whole damn show, but let's do 2/3. Let's do 60% of a show about fake trades. These are, I don't know best, but the ones of the many I got, these are the ones that I think are most compelling and can actually happen. Some people still sent in trades that don't work via the CBA or just don't make sense, rationally didn't make sense. And instead of sort of unpacking them and saying, you don't understand how it works, let's just go with the good ones and talk about the good ones. So here are listener trades. We're going to do this for the remainder of the show. Typically mailbags, we do them each week, and you can just tweet at me at Mike G. Ritz or send me an email, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. And they're more just grab baggy questions about anything you want. So they don't have to be trades. In fact, if you send me fake trades after this, probably going to ignore them because I don't actually like it. But I love y'all, so I want to do fake trades for little bits. But if you want to get involved in a future mailbag, that is how we do it. But this a little bit strange mailbag, very special delivery episode is going to be a little bit different. There were kind of some themes to trade, so let's get into the themes. The first and the simplest one of how to save $3 million and make this team better came from listener Greg and also listener the Adislorian at Mr._Adams. I think it's Adislorian. I might have screwed that up. Mr. Adam67, Mr._Adam67 on Twitter both sent the same sort of framework of a deal, which was trade CJ McCollum and Robert Covington for Ben Simmons. And this is the most straightforward, the most obvious, and the one that is, I think, the most appealing to Blazer fans, right? Robert Covington hasn't been very good, but is still, a solid pro, would play anywhere he went, even if he wouldn't start. I thought at the beginning of the year he would basically start for every team in the league. He struggled a little bit, so maybe he would just play for every team in the league, but he's a top 8 contributor literally on every NBA roster. And some NBA rosters say the Los Angeles Lakers, he would be maybe their most important player, not named Anthony Davis. But it's this deal is, sent in by 2 different people, and a couple other people kind of just said, do the Ben Simmons trade, idiot. And I would have already pulled the trigger if this idiot was in charge of the team. I would have already pulled the trigger, but I like this idea because it's straightforward. I do think it hurts the Blazers' depth a little bit, and it really demands that Ben Simmons agrees to play power forward. And that doesn't necessarily need to play power forward on offense. I'm mostly talking about defense. He needs to go guard fours and guard them a bunch, and that's what he would be asked to do because, he would guard whoever the best point of attack defender is, I guess. But he has to like buy into that role, which, give and take, that he's mostly wanted to overwhelm little guys. That's what he wants to do on defense, and he's damn good at it. Don't get it twisted. But I sort of like this trade as theoretically, right? Like I think it hits the marks in theory. So I would do this. I don't think Daryl Morey would, which is why this isn't like the whole show about doing this. This is just like, I think Daryl Morey says no. I don't think CJ McCollum and Robert Covington is what he wants. I think even it's those two and like a boatload of picks, and the boatload of picks make sense for the Blazers. I would say no, 3 picks and 4 pick swaps is too much here. But like, if it's me, if you're asking Mike Richmond, if I'm pulling the trigger, CJ and Rocco for Ben Simmons, I do it immediately. I pound the yes button. The other sort of theme of trades, very similar, sent in by listener Mike U, listener Mike K in Austin. 2 Mikes sending a trade proposal to another Mike. That's real synergy here by the triumvirate of Mikes. But it was CJ McCollum for Jeremy Grant, and it was kind of some combination of Jeremy Grant. Scott at ScottPTB30 also sent one in. But it's not exactly a CJ for Jeremy Grant, so we'll get there in a moment. So like there were varying ideas with how this would work, but I think like a straightforward version of the CJ McCollum for Jeremy Grant trade, and I talked about this on yesterday's podcast, but here's like the actual math making it work, is CJ McCollum and CJ Ellaby for Jeremy Grant and Corey Joseph. Plus, I would think the Blazers would probably have to include a first-round pick, some kind of like, hey, the next pick we can convey lottery protected after we trade after we complete this trade with the Chicago Bulls will be yours, just because CJ McCollum is 3-4 years older than Jeremy Grant, and he has an extra year on his contract, like another year beyond that on his contract than Grant does. So he's not as appealing, and the Pistons are in a rebuild. So, like CJ McCollum is probably like maybe better overall. I think he's probably better overall than Jeremy Grant. Like I don't even think that's close. I don't know why I'm hedging here. He's just a better basketball player than Jeremy Grant. Offense is really important, and CJ's darn good at it. So like, even with that, I think the money and the age, you might have to sweeten it up. Also, like, you might not have to put a first. It could be a couple seconds, but I think it's something like that. And I would do this trade. And I mentioned this before, and I'll mention again here. I'm a little hesitant. Like I am admittedly a little hesitant about what this trade looks like, because I do think you're giving up the best player. And I don't think Jeremy Grant as your second best player is like really appealing, but theoretically, he would be your second best player only on the defensive end. And he would not be your second best player on the offensive end. That's still going to be Norm. That's still going to be Anthony Simons. To some extent, it's still going to be Nurk because of the screen setting and the passing. But Jeremy Grant as your fourth best player, I really like. I'm into this trade. Scott at ScottPTB30, two shouts to the Twitter handle. Thanks for a longtime listener, Scott, for saying this one, and offered another version of this trade. That's CJ McCollum and Anthony Simons for Jeremy Grant and Kelly Olynyk. Let's just assume Kelly Olynyk's healthy when we're completing this trade, and also it would have to be after December 15th because he just signed a contract, whatever. But let's assume this happens like the day after Christmas, right? Just so we're operating in reality, a future conditional reality, but like within the realm. I'm a little dicier about this, but I do think Olynyk's ability to play, to be a stretchy 5 and to play a little bit of 4 is intriguing. I just think giving up Ant and CJ, you're only two kind of like, I mean, CJ's hard to trade. Like, don't get it twisted. Hard to trade. 30 years old, paid like an all-star and the Blazers' second best player. So they kind of need back someone who can be that second best player type or function as that, but he's not that on another team. Like he might be the best player on the Pistons, but like in the future, that's got to be Cade Cunningham or they're sunk anyways. So it's CJ's not an easy guy to trade. Like it's not that simple. I think this exercise from you, dear listeners, kind of illustrated how there just aren't that many obvious targets. And even then you don't know if the other team is saying yes, unless you're selling low. But I wouldn't want to also trade Ant in this trade, Scott, because While I like Kelly Olynyk, I think he's pretty darn solid. Like, he's a really solid rotation big. I'd much rather have Olynyk than Cody Zeller, and I'm a big Cody Zeller believer. If you've listened to this podcast a bunch, you know that I'm a believer in the big handsome. But Olynyk's just struck straight up a lot better than he is. I worry that if you trade Ant and CJ, and this is the return that you've kind of, you've exhausted your options to upgrade the roster via the trade market, and you're not getting better in any other way because you've already traded away your draft pick for this upcoming season, and you're not going to have a cap space. So it's like, Jeremy Grant and Kelly Olynyk better make it happen, recognizing the challenges of paying Anthony Simons and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know that I would do this, but I do think this is like you get more talent in this trade. Okay, let's come back in the third segment and close out the show on this special delivery mailbag where we're doing fake trades the whole time. A whole episode of fake trades. After years of resisting fake trades, your boy finally gave in, and that's what we're doing this entire show. So, before we do that, let me tell you about BetOnline. It's just the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. And right now, if you are a first-time user, you can go to BetOnline and get a 50% welcome bonus when you use the promo code LOCKEDON when you're making that first deposit. So then you've got all this money to play with, right? You put in $100, you get your 50% welcome bonus, you got $150. You can bet on anything with more props, more odds, more lines than ever before on basketball, on football, that's pro and college, on soccer here, the MLS. The Timbers are in the Western Conference semifinals and could host the MLS finals. You could bet on both of those matches on betonline.ag. You could also bet on all of the soccer abroad if you prefer maybe a higher level of soccer than MLS. You can bet on combat sports. You can, whatever it is, you'll find it. Plus, you can play your favorite Vegas casino game. So go ahead, take advantage of this deal now. Go to BetOnline. It's where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. So we talked a little injury stuff because it's the news of the day. We're doing a fake trade mailbag. We talked a whole bunch of CJ for Jeremy Grant, CJ for Ben Simmons. We got some other ideas, and to close the show, these are some more sort of out-of-the-boxy ideas. I think Jeremy Grant and Ben Simmons and this next one is a kind of like on-the-nose type of trades. This one comes from Sam, who says CJ for Tobias Harris. Sam's proposal is CJ and Rocco for Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle. I think the Rockets turn that down because I think Thybulle is he's so much younger than Rocco. He's under team control in the way that Robert Covington is going to enter unrestricted free agency. Thybulle is going to be, will be, when he enters free agency, will be a restricted free agent. Like, I think they turn that specific trade down, Sam. I think they do hang up the phone on you. But CJ for Tobias Harris, it's that works straight across. That doesn't save the Blazers money, so you've kind of failed in that regard. But I think you can, let's just say you massage it to make this one work, right? You either include a third team to take on some money somewhere. You somehow put Nurk in the deal. You ship Rocco somewhere else. You don't take back Matisse Thybulle. You take back someone who's way worse, like Shake Milton. I think you can. I think you can get there without this specific trade. But the idea of CJ for Tobias Harris still puts you in the ballpark of where we're trying to go. I would probably do this for the same reason I would do the Jeremy Grant trade. I think CJ is better, but I think Tobias Harris, who I don't really aesthetically care for his game. He's so big and he can't pass. And if he could pass, he'd be a really special player, but he's kind of just like gets tunnel vision. And it's like, I'm going to throw one pass or I'm going to shoot. Like it doesn't have a lot of layers of reads. I like chuckers like Norman Powell, who doesn't even consider the pass. Versus guys who like play make and run a little pick and roll and do all this stuff. Like I'm not a big believer in Tobias Harris is pretty good, but I think Steve McCollum's better. And I think you're mostly upgrading here with like stylistic. So I do this trade. Again, I don't care about the luxury tax, so I might just do it straight up. But like if we're trying to get there, I would do this trade if you could get under, if it got you to the right place money wise, just because I think adding Tobias Harris at the 3 or 4 and with, interchangeably with Rocco, or if you have to include Rocco interchangeably with like Nassir Little or whoever you bring back, at that spot, George Niang, I guess. But like I think you add more length and still some offensive pop because Tobias Harris can really score. He just, he's somewhat limited, but he's a bucket. Like he could score, and he could score in isolation. He's a valuable offensive player to be sure, and he's big enough to be valuable on defense. So yeah, I would consider this trade. And a couple other people sent me versions of the Tobias Harris trade, but all of theirs were bad. Because they were even, this one I think they say no to. Everyone else is like, yeah, you just give them Nurk, and then they have 3 centers and it's fine. Like, sorry y'all, I couldn't entertain it. But let's move to sort of out. Those are kind of the obvious ones on the nose that a bunch of listeners sent in. Not that the obvious ones are bad, right? Like finding the obvious, like saying like just do the Ben Simmons trade is just following the league, y'all. You know the deal. We've been calling for the Ben Simmons CJ swap for months in this very podcast. So if you're still calling for it too, you're still doing it right. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you're still doing it right. But some out of the box ones. This one comes from listener Justin. I specifically called Justin out because Justin is classic for sending me some fake trades, and I'm like, stop, please stop. But Justin still hit me with this one that says, and I'm not stopping today. Like I said, we're doing fake trades. Kyle Anderson, Dillon Brooks, and Jarrett Culver for the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for CJ McCollum and CJ Ellaby. On its face, I do not love this trade. Because I just think you're giving up the best player. And I don't think Memphis says yes to it, to be clear, because of the money owed to McCollum. They're going to have to, the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade is going to kick in, and they're going to have to pay John Morant. And I don't think this team wants to be, I don't think they want to pay another dude $30 million. But let's just assume they did it, because like, I'm not going to like argue on behalf of the Memphis Grizzlies front office saving money. I want everyone to spend a ton of money. So let's have Memphis do it too, for the sake of this show. So, Kyle Anderson, I like, but he's taken a really big step back this year. He used to be like a kind of an elite defensive player, and he's not been good on defense, both just with my eyeballs. The Grizzlies are worst defensive team in the league. And like when I've seen Kyle Anderson, I'm like, what happened to him? And like the advanced stats say that Kyle Anderson has taken a huge step back in defensive impact, which is a bummer because he's like big and weird and slow and can really pass. He's like the exact type of player that pass first point guard me loves. But like, so I'm a little worried about the Kyle Anderson part. I like Dillon Brooks. Chucker. You know I love chuckers. Doesn't look to pass because he doesn't believe in passing. He's going to shoot it every time he gets it. He's going to take some wild heat checks, and that heat check might be his first attempt of the game because he knows he was hot from last week, baby. Dillon Brooks is not afraid. Also, wore a giant mink coat when he was in Toronto. Back home, wore a giant fur coat. Tight. Got a great personality. And he's also just like a dog on defense. Not always a great defender because I think he gets out of position being too aggressive and he fouls way too damn much, but like he gets after it, and you can put him on premier wings and say, go get him. Now he's going to foul out with 4.5 minutes left and drive you crazy. But Dillon Brooks is, he plays hard as hell. Sometimes to his own detriment, but I don't love this one, but I like it. I do think Dame, Norm, Kyle Anderson, Rocco Nurk, Dillon Brooks, Ant, Nassir Little, Larry Nance is darn good. Is that a championship level team? It is not. Is that a better team than they have currently? Probably, because of the size and the defensive ability. Dillon Brooks probably a 2 also, but he can play 3 and it doesn't matter. And slow-mo, Kyle Anderson can play 4. He can even play freaky deaky 5 if you have the right matchup, but you don't need to with Larry Nance. Like I think you add size and switchability and all those things. And if Kyle Anderson refines his defensive impact, like he's going to be really good. That's an outside the box trade. Justin, thank you for that one. Another outside the box trade is from John, who offers Robert Covington, Greg Brown III for a second rounder in exchange to Indiana in exchange for Torrey Craig and Justin Holiday. I told John I don't love this trade, but I like that it's outside the box. I don't think Torrey Craig and Justin Holiday are like, Torrey Craig is a competitive defender, but not a super good one. He's like the kind of guy who, if he was your third wing off the bench, you're in pretty good shape. But if he's your second wing off the bench, or if he's your starter, you're in trouble. If you have to rely on Torrey Craig every night, you're probably not that good of a team. It's why he didn't last in Milwaukee and why he didn't play in Phoenix in their championship run. Is because at the highest levels, Torrey Craig isn't exactly a solution. Like you can find better ones for his limited offense and the level of defensive impact he brings. Justin Holiday, I like his think he could be a useful contributor. I think Roko's been bad enough that if you get these two guys back, two rotation players in exchange for Roko this year, you're probably upgrading the roster. I think on the whole, like Robert Covington is better and more impactful than these guys. I think Roko next to either Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis is really intriguing for the Pacers. So I think they pound the yes button on this. I think this is a mild upgrade, but it's also relatively low risk. This seems like something where you like may have found guys who can play, 2, 3, and 4 and fit in there and like have your interchangeable wings that you need without giving up some of your best players. You can still find a CJ trade down the road. You can still find an Anthony Simons or a Yusuf Nurkic trade down the road. And you've added some useful depth. John, I like the creativity here. Don't love the trade, but I like the creativity here. And finally, to close the show, our most creative trade. And I say that because it was the only person who responded brave enough to propose a Damian Lillard trade. Many of you are like me, and you were doing this exercise and you said, well, let's save some money and keep Damian Ollie Lillard Sr. on the team and then figure it out. But not Dr. J. Dr. J said, screw it. Let's blow it up. I don't know if Dr. J said screw it, actually. His email did not include those words. His email basically said, this is a real shakeup and I would do it. And the trade is Damian Lillard, Dennis Smith Jr., and Greg Brown III in exchange for Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, and Matisse Thybulle. This is the trade Daryl Morey wants. He wants Dame for Ben Simmons. Would he include Maxey and Thybulle? He would have to. Gosh darn it. I don't think this, I don't think a CJ, Ben Simmons, Anthony Simons, Roko Nurk team, I don't think it's a championship level team. I think it's the same problem as you currently have, is that, except worse, right? Like, can you win a championship with CJ McCollum as your second best player? Probably not, right? Probably not. But could CJ be a second best player in a very good team if the other parts fit better? Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is an other parts fit better. I think this adds, you could, you keep Norm and Maxey and Thybulle as a bench unit. Like you are going to monster teams during the regular season. You've added depth, you've added versatility, you've sacrificed your top end talent. So I think it catches up with you in the playoffs. But in terms of being a better basketball team, I think you could make a case that in the regular season, a Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle swap for Damian Lillard, as long as you're just trading end of the bench guys like Dennis Smith Jr. and Greg Brown, as this proposes from Dr. J, I think you've created a team that could potentially be just a wonderful regular season team. Ability to play a bunch of different sizes. You could play crazy big lineups if you wanted to with Ben at point guard and Larry Nance at center, and basically just have a bunch of 6'7" dudes on the court. With Roko, and I mean Norman Powell specifically isn't 6'7", but you could put size and length out there with Nas and Roko and Norm and Larry Nance and Ben Simmons. I like what all of the looks you could do. You could go super big with Ben Simmons playing something that looks like the two next to CJ, Robert Covington, Larry Nance, and Yusuf Nurkic. You're gigantic. You could play small guards with Anthony Simons and Tyrese Maxey off the bench and just run and try to just split the side of the floor and play pick and roll and kind of do a juiced down version of Dame and CJ, except with a monster young bench unit. This is brave, and I think I like the idea of it. I do kind of think it ends up with a team that loses in the playoffs because top-end talent matters in the playoffs, and who your best player is on this team. It's is a CJ McCollum, Ben Simmons offense? Is a Ben Simmons, Yusuf Nurkic pick and roll going to work? And is a Ben Simmons, CJ McCollum offense good enough to propel you past the elite teams in the West, like Golden State and like Phoenix and Utah? I kind of think no, but I think this is the type of big risk. It would be a bummer to trade Dame. It's something like at worst the second best player in the history of the franchise. And for my money, trending towards the best. But this is the type of when I dreamed up this challenge, I was hoping people would go way outside the box. And I think Dr. J achieved this with some real bravery. Although if you think trading Dame is a pitchforkable offense, email me and I'll like either talk you off the ledge or connect you with Dr. J so you could pitchfork him yourself. Just kidding. I would never do that to my dear listeners. Bring your pitchforks to me. I'll protect Dr. J. That's our fake trade show. We did it. Like I said, if you have a fake trade, you can send it to me. I'm probably going to ignore it. We'll do this again. I'm malleable. Like, I don't like the fake trade stuff. Like, the trade machine stuff doesn't super excite me, but it excites y'all. And I do this for you. This is your show. Like, it's my show. It's my mic. I'm doing it here. I make it happen, but like, I make it happen for you, dear listeners. Like, the reason I'm still doing this, almost 3 years later, is because I love doing it, and I love doing it for you. So as much as I kind of joke, like, I hate Trade Machine, and I've joked about it a bunch here, we'll revisit this project. We'll do another version of this, say sometime after Christmas. We'll let it marinate for a month and come back in the new year and like revisit your best fake trades as we get a better sense of what's happening in the league and kind of what other teams are doing. Because once you kind of figure out what other teams' needs are, you can kind of zero in on what more reasonable trades might look like. That is going to do it for today's show. A non-traditional mailbag, to be sure, but if you want to be involved in a future mailbag, email me, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com, or tweet at me at Mike G. Rich. The Blazers play the Spurs this evening, or this is Thursday, December 2nd show. They play the Spurs this evening, the evening of December 2nd. We'll have a recap show for you on Friday, and Jason Quick is going to join that show. So it'll be me and Jason Quick for The Athletic talking about this Blazers couple home games, about Dame's injury, about the latest news with the team. Jason is a wonderful guest. You won't want to miss that one, so make sure you come back. That will be Friday's show waiting for you in your feed on December 3rd. Appreciate you listening. Go subscribe to the show on YouTube. We're getting to 2,000 subscribers by 2022, and you're going to help, because if you're listening to my voice now and you haven't subscribed, you're too deep into the show. You owe it to me. Go subscribe, please. And then tell your friends to do the same. People hear about podcasts by word of mouth. If you want to promote the podcast, do it with your voice. Tell your pals about it. They can find it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.